Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Come on, Shawn! Give it to him! Give it to him! Give it to him!
Give it to me.
Joe Gimateo.
The Ultimate Warrior, to my knowledge, does not smoke.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one pay-per-view at a time. That's right, folks. This is a special pay-per-view episode, so pay-per-view rules are in effect. For a breakdown on what those are and what they entail, listen to any one of the many, many pay-per-view episodes we have in the archives. Just go download all of them a couple times, and then listen to them. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about In Your House 7, Good Friends, Better Enemies. This pay-per-view aired on April 28th, 1996, and was recorded at the Omaha Civic Auditorium in Omaha, Nebraska, featuring Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready?
All right, then. Let's get into it. We're going to kick off In Your House 7 with a black and white retrospective about the championship title match later on tonight, that being the no-holds-barred match between Diesel and Shawn Michaels. We started off with Diesel. Diesel is a rebellious malcontent, and the no-holds-barred match is advantageous for him and his size. Shawn, on the other hand, is the David to Diesel's Goliath. And when this is over, the only guarantee is that they will hate each other even more. Then we get the In Your House cartoon intro. I was pretty excited to see what kind of hijinks that the In Your House logo can get into this time.
Carpet bomber.
What kind of wholesome fun. Yes, that's the exact phrase that I used. Holy shit, they are not fucking around. They are carpet bombing the city of Omaha with In Your House logo suicide bombers. By God, the humanity.
That warthog just annihilating Omaha.
Welcome, everyone, to Omaha, Nebraska. And we will go into our first match of the night. The British Bulldog and Owen Hart with Jim Cornette and Clarence Mason defeat Ahmed Johnson and Jake the Snake Roberts by submission in 13 minutes and 47 seconds. This is being billed at the top as just the British Bulldog, but as we can see with Clarence Mason's presence, things are bound to be changed on the fly here. Before we can get any clarity, we'll get blessed with another terrible replay of that event in Germany between Jake Roberts and the British Bulldog. Stand by for Jake Roberts, who's backstage and is going to start to give us a promo on how, when he goes downtown, he knows what he's going for. I assume it's a drug reference because Vince frantically cuts him off about what's going on in the ring. You can see Jake was pissed about that before continuing on as if Vince had never interrupted him. Jake slithers down to the ring, and while it's never really stated clearly what the issue is, a lot of time is spent implying that Cornette wants the snake ejected. Jake then decides to pull his snake out, Cornette faints, and we still haven't got to any wrestling yet. This was quite a few minutes into things. Jake must take the snake back to the locker room, the referee so decrees, and on his way out he flashes it at people one more time. To his credit, Cornette did a great job selling all of this. He ends up fainting. Here, when Jake comes back out, he has Ahmed Johnson with him. Ahmed with a big cartoony bandage around his hand. And in the most telling line of this entire segment so far, Vince says, "I guess we've got ourselves a tag team match," just as the bell is ringing. And that's where we finally start with this after so much shit going on before it. It's going to be Jake the Snake and Owen Hart in the ring. The beginning of the match is where this started to go downhill to me. The back and forth about who wants who in the ring, the Bulldog avoiding Ahmed and Jake both. None of it was entertaining to me. In fact, it felt like a waste of two good wrestlers in Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. We did get the obligatory close-up of Diana Smith, although she did not mouth, "Come on, Davey," like she usually does.
But has that troubled look on her face.
Yeah.
Of course.
There was a continuing focus on the effectiveness of the DDT throughout this match, and honestly, it was irritating. I'm not going to be one of those people that, claims that moves aren't as effective now as they used to be or any of that kind of thing, but just the calling for it, the constant calling for the DDT as if it was going to end this match and put us all out of our misery. It was great to see the Bulldog power slam Jake Roberts. As soon as I saw that, I said, you know what? Fuck yes. If that man wants to wrestle, let's see him take some fucking bumps instead of just the bumps that his internal organs are constantly taking just by being alive and walking down to the ring. Full credit to Owen Hart. He was working everything perfectly, right down to facial expressions and gestures. But what he couldn't work perfectly was that little series where Ahmed was beating on Owen in the corner. None of that looked good. Half of it looked real, but not in a good way. Things like this are what highlight how dangerous Ahmed must have been to work with. He was just going whole hog into that with no kind of apparent care for his opponent. Jake's beer gut sticking out from underneath his snake vest made me realize that he's in about the same kind of physical shape I am. And that's not impressive. Did I hear Vince say that this was the first time Jake the Snake Roberts had ever teamed up with Ahmed Johnson? Did you guys hear that question?
I didn't,
No.
I must say.
He definitely stated that this is the first time that they ever teamed up, which is blatantly a lie. When it's time for Ahmed to rally after the hot tag, man, that spine buster on the Bulldog looked rough. I flinched just watching it, and in what was extremely surprising, the Bulldog got the win with a barely executed leg hold, which Vince said, and I quote, caused Jake the Snake to submit almost immediately. He didn't even get him turned over into the full hold before Jake was tapping out. Gentlemen, I wasn't feeling the same energy that the crowd apparently was in this. They were going banana, but I was not. Maybe because I'm not a fucking child, or maybe because I value Owen Hart and the British Bulldog too much to see them taking part in this. Either way, this match drew a dud from me. Joe, please, what did you think of it?
Well, I'm going to be a lot more generous than you. Knowing what we're getting here, we know we're not going to get a 5-star match. But we have some pretty big names in this match. Owen Hart, British Bulldog, Jake Roberts, Ahmed Johnson. I mean, those are all pretty big names for Jake. That's a big name in 1988. But for the rest of them, I mean, this is a good match to start the show. I know not everything is going to be serious, so they have to throw in some comedy. The stuff with Jim Cornette I thought was hilarious. I thought he did a great job with that. Much funnier than the shit we're going to see later that tried to be comedy in this show.
Oh boy.
So I really enjoyed that. I liked how Vince said, I think he's going to die, talking about Jim Cornette. And I thought it was pretty good use of the snake in this situation to kind of start things off. And then Jake brings out Ahmed Johnson, which to me is a great way to make up for Jake's limitations right now. And it helps get Ahmed Johnson over even more. He got a great response when he comes out, and the crowd is really into this. Again, I think this is a good start to the show. You're getting the crowd into it. I didn't care for the ending very much, but after reading some stuff in The Observer and seeing what happens later in the show, I understand why the Bulldog got the win here. Or he got the pin, I guess, or the submission, whatever it was. I didn't like the ending because I think Jake Roberts and Ahmed Johnson were getting this crowd so fired up, and then they just immediately brought them down by having them lose the match. So this crowd was really into it, and then they just died. But I think everybody in this match did a fairly good job Pretty good in-ring storytelling, too, with Davey Boy Smith avoiding Ahmed Johnson. I always like when that happens because that gives the crowd something to really cheer for once he gets his hands on him. But I'm going to give it 3 stars. I'm just going to kind of go right in the middle there. I didn't think there was anything tremendous about this, but I didn't think it was necessarily bad either.
Generous indeed.
So I'm going to be falling somewhere in between you two guys, it sounds like. As it started off, I have to say I didn't exactly love all of this stuff at the beginning. I liked Cornette, and I liked the way he was playing up his, fainting or passing out because of his fear of the snake or whatever. But I thought that the whole contract thing with Clarence T. Mason and Jake the Snake tearing that up and then having to take the snake back, I just thought it was maybe wasting a little bit too much time. And maybe this is some setup we could have done on Raw or Superstars instead of, on pay-per-view. But I thought that once the actual match started, though, it wasn't all that bad. Especially Bulldog and Owen, they do a really good job with each other. When Owen is in there with Johnson, at least at first, it didn't look too bad. And then they, like you said, Joe, they're pushing this, something for their crowd to cheer about. The British Bulldog keeps on cowering out every time Ahmed Johnson gets tagged in. He immediately tags in Owen. And even Owen's giving him this look like, what the fuck, man? I kind of enjoy that. I think that's a good thing for the crowd to build up excitement. But I do agree with you, Bartlett, on the part about ruining Bulldog and Owen. You have some of your best wrestlers in the WWF right now, and you have them tied up in this non-existent tag team division that we've talked about for months. So it's a real waste of them, and not necessarily with who they're wrestling here, just the fact that they're still forced to be a tag team with each other. I think that is kind of what I'm saddest about here. And the other thing that got highlighted with Johnson, we've already talked about the limitations of Jake the Snake, that length over the last month or so. So there's really not much to talk about with him here because it's more of the same. He looks pretty bad. He's slow, he's out of shape, and he's way past his prime at this point. Johnson could look really good and impressive because he does this, I don't know, almost berserker mode that he goes into where he just loses it. And it is impressive looking up until you realize how many of these punches aren't landing, or if they do land, they're dangerous. It's like this balance between if they could just hone this beast in a little bit, it could be something great. But right now, he's just really sloppy, and it looks dangerous at times. But he is an impressive person to watch in the ring, though. There's no taking that away from him. So when it came down to the end, I thought this was an okay way to start off the pay-per-view. And, I've used this before. It was serviceable. I thought it was a serviceable match between these two teams. And I didn't think it was a dud necessarily. I ended up going with 1 star.
So, Joe, what did Dave Meltzer have to say about it?
Dave Meltzer gave this 1 3/4 stars. He says that considering Davey Boy Smith is going to be the main event in the next pay-per-view, it was surprising to not see them put him over stronger in the finish.
Yeah, knowing that, I agree.
Yeah, that's one of the things that bothered me the most about this match was that finish, just how quickly Jake submits. I mean, the Bulldog didn't even get a chance to fully apply this leg hold. The camera work on it was non-existent too. I mean, we saw it for all of 2 seconds before he was tapping out.
And it wasn't a clean finish for the Bulldog either. That was after he beat on his leg like 3 times with Cornette's racket to kind of soften the leg up for the submission.
Yeah. All right. Well, anybody else that has any questions needs to call into the Superstar line. There are people there ready to talk to you or in some cases bitch at you about what they've been doing so far tonight. By the way, Mark Marrow and Sable had a match on the free-for-all segment before the pay-per-view. They defeated the 1-2-3 Kid with Ted DiBiase by pinfall in 7 minutes and 17 seconds. And here in the pay-per-view is where we see them talking about their match while screaming into the camera. This is from both Mark Marrow and the 1-2-3 Kid. They're quite animated here. Sable is present behind Mark, but she is just standing there and looking at the camera and staring and trying to act sultry and
She's now carrying a dominatrix whip, though.
Yes, she is. She has very quickly transitioned from that chick in the audience to somebody that is more than average here. The kid, the 1-2-3 kid, he looked really tragic. Like, there was a couple times where I swear to God, he looked like he was about to cry.
Well,
where has he been?
Yeah, I was going to say, the last time we saw him in action was the Crybaby match, right?
I think so.
Yeah, now that you mention it.
Horrible.
Still crying about it.
A damn shame, too. Well, as if he's still with Ted DiBiase, then no, I take that back. I don't want to see him. Well, we are going to return to the ring now for our next match. The Ultimate Warrior defeats Goldust with Marlena and an unnamed bodyguard by countouts in 7 minutes and 38 seconds, with Goldust retaining the Intercontinental Championship as a result. Whew. Let's do this. I still love Goldust's entrance, and I still love Marlena. I want to start with something positive. The Warrior came out with full pyro. There was a big burning frame in the shape of his makeup that just burned forever. His entrance lasted forever. At least, relatively speaking for the Warrior, it just kept on going. I loved the camera going to Goldust. And Goldust saying, "I ain't getting in there. He hurt my leg." Something about that just tickled me. So far into this was a couple minutes. The Warrior hasn't even bothered taking his jacket off yet. But as Goldust and Marlena kind of escape up the entryway to avoid him, the Warrior picks up Marlena's cigar and starts smoking it, and then gets Marlena's director's chair and brings it up into the ring and sits in it, in his Warrior jacket, smoking a cigar. This was really surreal in a lot of ways, not all of them good. Once again, this was a spectacle and not a wrestling match. Once I realized that, things kind of fell into place. Oh, the Omaha crowd there, they really loved calling Goldust a certain slur for gay men that starts with an F. That was bad.
And the Warrior leading the chant like a composer.
Yes.
Whole families gathering in, full-throated screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, a kid at ringside had a sign that said, "Warrior smear the queer."
Jeez.
Yeah.
Did you see Gay Dust? That was a sign early in the day.
Yeah. Omaha is quite incensed about Goldust, apparently. The whole production, this just all went on for so fucking long, though, before Goldust even gets into the ring. And even then, it wasn't to wrestle. It was to sit in the director's chair at the Warrior's insistence. None of this made any fucking sense at all. And of course, the Warrior then eventually clotheslines Goldust out of the chair. Goldust runs. The referee starts counting. Goldust is counted out. And we have just had a match without ever having a match at all. But then the unnamed bodyguard decides to get involved for some fucking reason, and the Warrior just spends some time beating on him in the ring. The Warrior wanders around the ring, he puts on Goldust's wig, he plays to the crowd, and that was pretty much the end of things. I think it was really disingenuous for this to be on the match card and advertised as a match, because while it was many things, words like shitty and pointless come to mind, it was definitely not a match. But, here we are. I'm going to give it a dud rating anyway, even though I really don't think it was a match. The fucking backlot brawl was more of a match than this was. Ryan, please, your thoughts on this.
Oh, man. I'll agree. I'll start out with a few things that are positive here. Goldust coming down to the ring, that was a good entrance. I also loved Goldust having the knee wrap on the outside of his vinyl suit. I thought that was really fantastic. And the Warrior, yes, his intro was long, but got a hell of a pop. The pyro looked good, that looked like the Warrior symbol in fireworks going off in the middle of the ring. So whatever, we had a good entrances here. And that is where anything good stops. Once the Warrior takes over, in the director's chair with the cigar, I'm wondering if this is ever going to turn into a match. And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, has this been, 3, 4, 5 minutes now that we've wasted? And the match is never going to show up. It doesn't happen. Once Goldust finally gets down there, it's more poor attempts at comedy and then one clothesline and a count out. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck did we just watch? This is supposed to be a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
We've seen some really bad stuff at pay-per-views, including the Warriors' no-sell of Hunter Hearst Helmsley's pedigree. But I think this maybe takes the cake as the worst thing that we've watched in a pay-per-view, because this was just piss poor. I don't know if, maybe Joe with his news could let us know, was Goldust really injured? Did he get injured right before this match and this was the audible that they had to call to try and salvage something out of this? Because if not, it's pretty unforgivable what they did here. It's without a doubt a dud. I mean, this is the definition of a dud match. We've now had the Warrior wrestle in 2 appearances, and they've both been some of the worst matches we've ever seen. So that doesn't look good going forward.
Yeah, I want to start with, I think it was 2 weeks ago maybe that I reported that Goldust had a knee injury. Because if you guys remember the last 3 Raws that we watched were taped.
Yeah,
so
yes.
Correct. Yeah.
The guys were in Germany during that whole time, and Goldust injured his knee at some point. I'm guessing it was probably that second match with Savio, would be my guess. But yeah, this was probably to salvage that, and they didn't want to gyp people of not seeing the Warrior because he was advertised. So They came up with this. Yeah, the Warrior's return has really been pretty bad so far, and I guess the only positive thing I can say, it's not necessarily a positive thing, but I feel like this is all just, everything you hear about this is all just obviously blamed on the Warrior, but I think Vince needs a lot of this blame too, because there are times where you can have Vince has a guy just come in, just get in here, we'll figure it out later, and it works. A good example would be Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash, if you remember when he first came in, it was like, all right, just get in here. You'll be Shawn's bodyguard and we'll kind of go from there. But with Warrior, it's like, I mean, he's returning, so it's a different situation, but it's like they just wanted him to come back. They had no plan for him whatsoever. His plan was to basically use this to help promote his comic book and his Warrior University and all the other stupid shit. But for Vince, he had no fucking plan. Like, we're going to have you come back at WrestleMania. We're going to advertise that you're going to be back for 8 weeks. We're going to throw you into a match with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, which has absolutely no meaning whatsoever to it. And then we're also going to put Hunter into another program the same fucking night with Mark Marrow, so it's absolutely meaningless. And then we're going to have you in this thing with Goldust, and then Goldust is going to get this knee injury, so now we come up with this terrible, we put you in a comedy act.
I wouldn't call that comedy.
Asking for trouble. It's just asking for failure, and it is. It's horrible. One thing I'll say, though, is when we knew the Warrior was returning, I said the thing that I was looking forward to the most is what the crowd reaction would be. And they are fucking loving him.
Yeah.
They are. They like him.
So people can shit on this return all they want, but they were all going crazy, getting off their ass and screaming when he enters the ring. So I don't know. I mean, obviously it was somewhat well received back then, but obviously as these events keep happening, yeah, it's just easy to shit on it. The match included a clothesline and nothing else. Did you guys look up who the bodyguard was? I was hoping you did not.
I didn't. I was thinking about it, but I decided against it.
It wasn't Mantaur, was it?
Yes, it was Mantaur.
I thought the guy looked familiar. That was why I was like, should I look him up? Nah.
So the match was a clothesline on Goldust and nothing else, and then the Warriors humiliating this bodyguard. And why do we even care? We have no attachment to this bodyguard whatsoever.
Didn't even get a name for him.
Yeah, so who the hell cares?
But to be honest, the bodyguard had more wrestling than the entire match.
Yeah. I obviously give this a dud as well. Dave Meltzer gave this -3.5 stars. He said, "This was horrible. It would have been okay for 2 minutes, but it never ended. Not only a worst match of the year candidate, but a worst match of the decade candidate."
I'm agreeing with Dave Meltzer here on that one.
Only halfway through the decade, too. Yeah, there's nothing much to add to that. Wow. Worst match of the decade. Let's just move it along and try to pretend like it didn't happen, like we're doing with so many other things in the WWF here in 96. We're going to move backstage with Doc Hendricks. Doc's back there observing a scene. The Bulldog has been yelling and trying to get into Shawn Michaels' dressing room. Apparently this has something to do with Diana Smith. Doc will keep us updated on that as events play out. Back at ringside, Vince tries to cover up for what just happened by playing it up. By what just happened, I mean this fucking abortion of a match between the Warrior and Goldust. Vince plays it up as Goldust being sneaky to keep his Intercontinental title. But we all know better. They just didn't want to expose how shitty the Warrior is in an actual wrestling match. See, that was my theory. I forgot you had said about Goldust injuring his leg. I thought that was just a fake gimmick thing for this match so that the Warrior wouldn't actually have to wrestle. They were just trying to protect them from exposing themselves, I guess, is what my thought was. But the actual injury does make better sense. But then we get word that it's time for our next match. Vader with Jim Cornette defeats Razor Ramon by pinfall in 14 minutes and 49 seconds. I'm pretty sure Vader spit on a kid while he was coming down the entryway. It was nice to see Razor Ramon for the first time in, what, guys, like 3 months, right?
It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Failed that pot test.
Yeah. After the bell rang, the first few sequences were just Vader throwing Razor and then roaring and flexing. And, maybe it's just me, but that kind of set the tone for me moving forward in this. So instead of writing notes at first, I just felt like I was sitting there watching the same thing over and over again. Vader beating on Razor, Vader flexing, Razor getting up, Vader beating on Razor, just repeat. By the time Razor finally rallies, any kind of excitement I might have had has been just worn out of me with this. Vader serving himself up for clotheslines looked terrible. The crowd was really getting into the referee counting Vader out. And this was not the first time the crowd was into it. The arena just very vocal in their excitement and support for really the whole pay-per-view so far. So it has to just be me, I guess, with this. Maybe you had to have been there, but the Vader bomb took forever to set up. No wonder Razor kicked out of it. Razor suplexing Vader was pretty goddamn impressive. I will absolutely give him that. Razor setting Vader up for the Razor's Edge was surprising, but then it wasn't surprising that he couldn't bring it to completion. And then I felt the finish was cheap, Vader sitting on Razor and then getting the pinfall like it was nothing. It was nice to see Doc Hendricks there at ringside, but then we get the word from Gorilla Monsoon via Doc Hendricks that at the next In Your House, Vader's going to be taking on Yokozuna again. And there's the end of this. This whole segment, guys, I wasn't expecting a match of the year candidate here, but I also was not expecting the match we got. It felt slow, plodding, and knowing that this is close to the end of the road for Razor Ramon here, it was honestly disappointing for me to watch. This match was a dud for me. Joe, please, what did you think?
This match was really difficult for me to watch. I think that Well, first let me back up to the beginning. Vince tells us that Yokozuna is going to return very soon, and we just watched some storyline that they had where his leg was snapped in half.
Yeah.
How is he coming back very soon? I don't understand.
Incredible feats of healing with him.
Yeah, yeah, and this match here, Razor Ramon and Vader, I understand the purpose of it. It's probably Razor Ramon's last televised match. So why not have him go out on his back to a guy like Vader, who you're trying to still kind of build up as this monster?
Yeah.
So the concept of it is great, but the match was just so boring to me. There were a lot of kickouts. I mean, Razor Ramon kicked out of the Vader bomb. He kicked out of Vader's finish, which was a little surprising. But to me, it was just, the match was way too long and boring, and nobody was really invested in it. Not the whole time, but at one point during this match, I thought to myself, it's hard to believe that Scott Hall is just a few weeks away from cutting one of the most iconic promos in the history of wrestling in less than a month from this. So pretty wild to think about that. But so a Vader bomb doesn't put him away, but just sitting on his chest put him away, which is disappointing to me because I like the Vader bomb. I think it's a good move. I think Vader might be out of shape. He's maybe gained some weight. He's not used to the WWF rings yet. I don't know what it is, but he just hasn't really been that impressive since he started with WWF. And I'm going to give this 1 star simply because I don't think it's a dud level, but it was just way too boring.
You know, we haven't seen Razor Ramon for quite a while, so I was excited to see the bad guy come down to the ring. You know, seeing that iconic entrance of his and everything, it was good. It was good to see. And then the next thing that kind of stood out to me was after about the 50th time, Vince McMahon calls Vader the man they call Vader. I wonder, is there anyone else in the WWF calling him that other than Vince McMahon? Because like he said it almost every time he said Vader. It wasn't Vader. It was the man they call Vader. But no one else calls him that. It's pretty incredible how he just won't give up that he has to use a name he gives someone. It's incredible.
Mason the Mutilator.
Yeah, exactly. But this match was very disappointing. Vader, like you said, both of you, I don't know what it is. I know Vader, I've watched Vader matches, recently, old Vader matches that looked really good. So I don't know if he is out of shape or he's just not quite ready after his surgery on his shoulder yet, but he just doesn't look that good right now. And every time Razor was to take over in the match, everything that Razor did was telegraphed by Vader. It seemed like a minute before the move happened.
Yeah.
That was probably my biggest criticism of the entire match. And then when Razor went for the Razor's Edge, I knew he wasn't going to land it because there's no way he can. Razor's on his way out here, and I have very few criticisms of the Razor Ramon character, but if there is one, it is definitely his finisher. It's just, you can't make it look good on anyone over like 220 pounds. So I just think that that's the one weak point of Razor Ramon during his entire time here. And then we're not going to really see him on TV again, but he goes out by an ass squash. Vader just fucking sits on him, and that's how he pins the bad guy. That's how the last time we're going to see Razor Ramon on WWF television is losing by a guy sitting on him. That was all pretty disappointing, but I do agree with Joe that I don't feel it was a dud. I mean, it was a bad match, but it wasn't a terrible match. So I ended up also going with a 1 star.
What'd Meltzer think, Joe?
Meltzer gave this 3.25 stars.
Whoa, the fuck was he smoking?
Jeez.
Vader looked to have put on some weight, and it works against him in long matches. Still, it was a good match with some good near falls and solid psychology.
If this match maybe had a shred of build-up to it, it could have got a 2-star out of me, but that would have been about it.
Yeah, I think he might be, maybe he's lured in by the fact that this is Razor's last match on TV.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, we'll move it along to our midway segment here. It's the America Online chat room. And Paul Bearer is there telling the lady what to type into the chat window while the Undertaker stands silently behind them. It was quite an entertaining yet brief scene. Because then we go to the Toddster. He's doing a voiceover for the merch store. He's got a polo shirt and hat package that at $40 were almost overpriced.
Referring to himself as the Toddster, too. Like, no one else called him that.
What a fucking tool.
Just, as a tidbit of information, I was very close to using that as my intro. The Toddster. Or I was going to change it to the Ryanster.
Did you guys wonder why there were no Razor Ramon or Diesel options in that merch?
They're selling them out of the back of a truck there at Omaha. Well, that is going to lead us into our next match. The Body Donnas, Skip and Zip with Sonny, defeat the Godwins, Henry and Phineas with Hillbilly Jim, by pinfall in 7 minutes and 17 seconds to retain the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship. I was a good couple minutes into this match before I stopped to take a single note, and that note is that this has been the best actual wrestling I've seen all night so far. It's been mostly Henry, but whether it's been Zip or Skip, the action in the ring has looked pretty good for the most part. That flip that Henry put onto Skip looked great. And things did get a little cartoony once Phineas got into the ring, but it wasn't turning me off. The mule kicking by Phineas came pretty close to doing it for me, though. It was silly. And then before you know it, I got to the end of this. Once we get to the finish, it's just as silly when Skip and Zip switch places while the ref wasn't looking. Zip coming in to surprise Henry Godwin with a roll-up pin and the 3 count. There's some ongoing shenanigans as we see that Sonny left Phineas an autographed picture. Seems like she might be playing both sides a little bit here. And that's it for what I've got on this segment. And boys, I don't know why I'm to this point. This was a 7-minute tag match for a championship title of a division that's been barely talked about the past 6 months. And I'm going to give this match a solid 2 stars. This was a step up for me in what I've seen so far tonight. Ryan, please, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this was, I don't know if I would go as strong as to say a pleasant surprise, but it was a surprise because, it started off with Henry O in the ring with Skip, and man, they looked really good together. And I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. We've talked about at length over the last, year and a half of to how good of a worker Henry O is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've spent the last few months, he's been tied up playing with this gimmick stuff, and he hasn't really been doing too much wrestling, unfortunately, but he is an extremely solid wrestler, and I thought it showed here when he was working with another strong wrestler, Skip. And even when Phineas and Zip were in there, it didn't look bad. You said Phineas was kind of bordering that line of being too cartoonish, but I feel he didn't cross it. It was very close. But didn't cross it. Unfortunately, Phineas, he gets distracted by a signed glossy from Sonny, and that allows Henry O to kind of be separated away and cornered and then loses the match. But I thought a pretty solid match. Nothing fantastic, but I'm with you, Bartlett. I gave it 2 stars.
Joe, do you get distracted by signed glossies of Sonny by any chance?
I do. The 6 best reasons to watch the WWF are Sonny, Sable, and Marlena. According to that sign those youngsters had in the crowd there.
Rapscallions.
Speaking of Sonny, I really wish we could hear what she's saying on their way to the ring.
Yeah.
We never get to hear it. I doubt that it's anything that exciting, but we never get to hear it, which I think is really strange. But I think that this match, I've been pretty critical of Skip ever since he debuted, but I really enjoyed when him and Henry Godwin were in the ring together. It was really good work. Had me interested in that. I think that the King was telling some terrible jokes during this entire match. It was like he wasn't even watching the match. So that was a little bit distracting for me, but I think that the Body Donnas in this match looked pretty good here, and that finish was really clever. So I gave it 2 stars as well. One thing I noted here is Sonny is being marketed as a babyface now, so that turn should probably happen pretty soon. because she's clearly a babyface, but the Body Donnas are not supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer gave this 1 3/4 stars. He said it was slightly better, but basically along the same lines as their WrestleMania match that we did not get to see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now, next up, we're going to pitch the next In Your House pay-per-view. Yokozuna will be taking on Vader there. And Mark Marrow will finally get his hands on Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I'm looking forward to what Mark Marrow can do in a match with somebody that can hopefully help to highlight him and elevate him. Savio Vega will get his hands on Stone Cold Steve Austin. Looking forward to that. And also the WWF Championship will be defended, but there's no word on who that might be that's taking on the champion, or who the champion might be for that matter. We'll switch to Doc Hendricks now in the back. He's interviewing Mark Marrow, and of course Sable is there behind him. She's wearing that black vinyl skin-tight suit and just looking all around uncomfortable. Superfly Little Richard doesn't look much better, but the promo Mark Marrow delivers wasn't bad. It just wasn't believable, nor was it delivered correctly. Mark Marrow whispered through all of it. What the fuck? What kind of a wild man whispers his promos?
And he was just yelling at children on the phone earlier.
Yeah.
He's lost his voice.
That's what it was. He screamed himself mute. Those
Yeah.
children. As the scene breaks up, the camera tries to get one last shot of Sable, but she's already gone. All we get is Doc Hendricks straightening his tie and walking away. But wait, if you send in a copy of your cable bill proving that you bought this In Your House pay-per-view, the WWF is going to give you 5 free minutes of long-distance calling on phone cards with WWF superstars on them. What the fuck? This was so dated and just... But now we're going to get Todd Pettingzoo doing another voiceover of the complete history between Shawn Michaels and Diesel. And when I say complete, I mean complete. All the way back to Diesel starting as Shawn's bodyguard. Just briefly, guys, did you have anything that you wanted to toss in about the upcoming match card for the next pay-per-view or Mark Marrow's promo?
As far as the promo goes, Mark Marrow looked really bug-eyed in this, and I was wondering if him and Doc maybe had a little extracurricular activity before the cameras started to roll here, because he looked mighty tweaked. But the voiceover, this is exactly what we said last week. Here is the lengthy, full history of the background of these two that we knew we were going to get at the pay-per-view. So why did we get it last week as well?
And the week before that. And the week before that.
It's a good opportunity to go take a piss or get a snack or get a beverage during this show. But I thought the Mark Marrow promo was fucking terrible. And I can already tell why the wild man gimmick was the drizzling shits up to this point. They showed the interviews with Diesel and Shawn from that free-for-all show before this, I guess, is what that was from.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just love Diesel threatening Vince McMahon. I think it's fucking hilarious, and I love it.
And sadly, Joe, you bring up just the drizzling shits of the wild man gimmick. And it makes you think, recently, actually, I was just listening to a JR podcast, and he was talking about the initial meeting that he had with Vince McMahon with Mark Marrow and Sonny. And the moment they walked out of the room,
Sable.
Yes, I'm sorry, Sable. And the moment that they left the room, he said, Vince turned to him and said, "Do you see what I see?" And he said, "I'm not sure. What do you see, Vince?" And he was like, "Sable. She's the one." So from the beginning, he didn't give two shits about Mark Marrow. He didn't give a fuck what gimmick he was going to slap on him. He didn't care about him. He was after Sable.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that moment, he knew that Sable was going to powerbomb the wild man and end his career.
As soon as they walked out the door, that woman is going to powerbomb her husband straight into oblivion.
Vince may have pulled out a garbage can and asked Sable to puke into it.
She's gonna puke.
After those promos that were recorded earlier that Joe referenced from Shawn Michaels and Diesel both, those are going to take us into our main event of the night. Shawn Michaels with Jose Lothario defeats Diesel by pinfall 17 minutes and 53 seconds in a no-holds-barred match to retain the WWF Championship. We're talking no holds barred! Vince certainly was not gentle easing us into this, and there was no fucking around to start the match. Shawn took it straight to Diesel, and the work gets going. The first time the no-holds-barred stipulation comes in is when Shawn Michaels takes the boot off of a Spanish announcer and nails Diesel with it in a great overhand chop from the top rope. And once again, I'm having a hard time taking notes because this match, unlike most of the other matches tonight, was actually interesting to me. This was actually engaging and made me want to watch it. Diesel's sidewalk slam on Shawn Michaels looked fantastic. And then I popped my fucking ass off when Diesel started strangling the referee. That was
not just any referee.
That's
Earl
right.
Hebner, the one that deserved it.
Your most hated referee of all time.
It was it was so unexpected. So incredibly unexpected.
We should tweet an image or Instagram an image of this to Bret Hart. I bet he would enjoy it.
It kept on getting better, though, because the whole point of strangling the referee was to get him down long enough to take his belt. And then Diesel started whipping Shawn Michaels with the belt. It was great. And then he starts strangling Shawn with the belt immediately afterward. Not just strangling him, but looping it around his neck like a fucking noose, which Diesel then uses to toss Shawn over the top rope and effectively string him up with the belt like a fucking prison suicide. Shawn is hanging there by the belt with his feet dangling. Vince McMahon played this perfectly, saying, "No holds barred wasn't meant to be this." The strangulation thing with Shawn and the belt was just ridiculous to watch, and in this case, I mean that in a good way. Popping my ass off. It then went up another level as Diesel throws Fink out of his chair to get the chair to carry over, and then hits Shawn with it. Shawn is still dangling by his neck by this belt. Hits Shawn with it right before Earl Hebner gets Shawn out of the belt. I popped my ass off again when Shawn dodged another chair shot. This time it caused Diesel's swing to bounce off the ropes. Diesel effectively hit himself in the head with the chair. It was great. The action in the ring kept it up until we wound up on the outside, and I wound up popping my ass off again as Diesel put Shawn through the fucking commentary table with the jackknife powerbomb right into Vince McMahon's lap. Crushing the equipment, they ripped the headphones from Vince McMahon's head. Vince himself is forced to dig Shawn Michaels out of the wreckage. This was just another amazing aspect to this. Shawn battles and crawls out of the pile, Vince yelling at him to let it be over. Let it be over! But Shawn is acting punch drunk as he stumbles to the apron, but maybe not as much as it might seem, because he very sneakily gets under the ring and sets Diesel up to get sprayed in the face with a fire extinguisher, blinding Diesel. This sets up a fantastic rally. More shit gets dragged in, pieces of a headset tangled in a chair being swung at Diesel's back. Diesel attempts a jackknife. Shawn reverses it by furiously punching Diesel in the face, riding Diesel as Diesel goes down on his back. Excellent spot there. Shawn tries for the sweet chin music. It gets reversed into a clothesline. And then things go banana as Diesel attacks Mad Dog Vachon.
Is that Luna's dad?
Her uncle.
Uncle, okay.
So Mad Dog and Butcher were a tag team. Butcher was Luna's dad.
Butcher, okay.
Crazy accident, too, by the way. I don't know if you guys know why he has that prosthetic leg.
Well, they briefly mentioned here that he got in an accident of some sort.
So I guess he was like mowing his lawn at home, and some car just like ran into him.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the lawnmower took his leg.
That's even worse, though. Some random car hits him.
Yeah, like it wasn't in the wrestling ring, or he wasn't even in a car, but a car hit him while he was just mowing his lawn.
God damn. Well, Mad Dog Vachon is a resident of Omaha, Nebraska, and he is there in the arena watching the match, and Diesel goes out, drags Mad Dog out of his seat, and then rips Mad Dog's fake leg off to take into the ring to beat on Shawn. Shawn gets the leg off of Diesel, though. He hits Diesel with it, which sets up the build to the sweet chin music, which Shawn hits, giving Shawn the pin and the 3 count. Shawn is riding high as he celebrates his victory, and that is where we fade to black on In Your House 7. Guys, I never once thought that we were going to have a bad match here. And I have to say, I'm very, very happy with the match we got, especially after some of the matches that came before it. I am going with a solid 4 stars here. This was a great match to end the night. Joe, please, what do you have there?
I have a gushing mess. That's what I have. I couldn't stop gushing through this whole thing. It just kept getting better. It kept getting better. These guys over-delivered. I mean, that's just all there is to it. This was easily probably my second favorite Shawn Michaels match up to this point, behind that original ladder match. This is easily my favorite Diesel match.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yes.
Second would maybe be him and Bret Hart at Survivor Series, but that's a very distant second. Mm-hmm. This was unbelievably good. Like I said, it just kept getting better. They started with this Spanish. Well, first off, we can't just brush past Shawn Michaels' entrance, because we are used to him doing the strip teasing, all the bullshit to start off, the fucking zip line at WrestleMania. This time he comes out, he's taken off the gear, he's pissed off, he's coming in to just kick Diesel's ass, and that just set the stage. Before that, Jose Lothario was with him. And I think if I have one complaint, it's that I don't think Jose should still be with Shawn. Maybe bring Jose back if you want to use him for a storyline, but I just don't think Shawn really needs him anymore. It made sense to have him at the Iron Man match, but I don't understand why he's there now, but whatever. So then we get into the match. The Spanish announcer boot was fantastic. Diesel is threatening Vince McMahon while in the ring, which I've just said not long ago that I love that. But this would later become one of the biggest storylines in the history of wrestling, is people attacking Vince McMahon. And this was like way before all that. So I wonder whose idea that was to do that. One thing this podcast has exposed is how terrible of a referee Earl Hebner is. Because, like, why is Earl Hebner, when Diesel was strangling Shawn with the belt, Earl Hebner is like telling him to stop, but I thought it was no holds barred. He should be asking Shawn, do you give up?
Right.
But he's telling Diesel to stop instead. I don't think he was counting, but he was telling him to stop. So I was like, what the fuck is this? And then he can't even fold up a chair. Like, Diesel brings in a chair, and then Earl Hebner tries to get it out of there. He can't even fold the chair. Like, he's struggling to fold the chair. It's amazing how much he sucks as a ref. But it's still a legend. But yeah, the hanging over the rope, like, that could have gone very bad, but it didn't. It was amazing. The whole thing with the leg is incredible. That it's like one of those things where, like, it's funny as hell, but at the same time, if you think about the story, you're like, my God, what a sick human being to do something like that. Diesel's such a shithead for doing that. You know, you kind of have both of those thoughts going through your head. But I heard that this was Mad Dog's idea with the leg. He was the one that pitched that idea to either Vince or Bruce Pritchard or whoever. So that's pretty great. Just amazing. This whole thing was amazing. I would love to watch this match again. I'd love to have this as a match of the year candidate for us. Shawn kind of playing more of the fighter gimmick here was a really nice change of pace, I think, rather than his usual charismatic, the most athletic and flamboyant. You know, he was really he was in a fight for his life, and it was great. I give it 5 stars.
right at the beginning of this match, Michaels does this backflip off the top rope to the outside onto Diesel, and it's kind of setting the tone on how this match is going to go. And just a few minutes later, Diesel takes over, and Michaels flies off the apron and into the crowd barrier. He takes his ribs just slamming across the barrier, and it looks great. You could see why Shawn Michaels is looked at as one of the greatest performers of all time. Yeah, and why he was addicted to painkillers, because I'm sure that hurt. There really was no spot in this match that I could point to that was bad. When Diesel takes over, very, very good. Some of the best stuff that we've ever seen out of Diesel, and sadly, it's right before he leaves. We're not going to really see him at all anymore, and we're getting some of his best stuff ever. And then it gets brutal. When he gets the leather belt and literally hangs Shawn Michaels over the ropes, this is certainly not stuff we would have seen just a year ago. We weren't going to see a brutal match like this. To the credit of gimmicks, we shit talk on gimmicks quite a bit, but I thought that both Diesel and Shawn Michaels worked the no holds barred gimmick excellently in this match. Like, I did not think it was overworked or underworked. It was the perfect amount here. The slam through the announcer's table with Vince, just let it be over. And then we get to Diesel ripping off the prosthetic leg of Mad Dog Vachon. And that was the first thought that came to my mind was, I bet you Mad Dog fucking loved this. Hearing, Joe, that it was him that set this up makes perfect sense. Because could you imagine a guy whose life revolved around wrestling and then it was cut short with such a tragic accident that he had no control over? So to be able to be involved in any way, I'm sure he just fucking loved it. Being a wrestler, a prosthetic leg of his being used as a prop to win the match, that's just fucking golden. How could you not say yes to that? I know I would. This thing was just an entertaining match from bell to bell. And I'm with you, Joe. I feel like this is a possible match of the year candidate and was a 5-star event. I loved it.
Well, that's 2 for 2, so I think it should be made official. Let's officially nominate this match as a match of the year candidate. What do you say, guys?
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it had literally everything that a sports entertainment fan could want. It was an Attitude Era match long before the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, great way to put it.
All right, it is officially added to the list.
Dave Meltzer gave this match 4.5 stars. He says that Shawn Michaels and Diesel put on a memorable performance to make an otherwise average show into a strong show. He says that this was easily the best pay-per-view match so far this year, but Warrior and Goldust was every bit as much of a negative.
The yin and yang.
Yeah, he's still not over it.
Well, as I said, we had faded to black to end our episode, so the most important question of all is all we have left here. At a price of $14.95, did you get your money's worth? Ryan, please go first.
Oh, this is tough because at a discounted price and having one of the strongest matches we've seen in a long time, a 5-star match in my opinion, it makes it kind of tough, even though we had such bad matches like the Ultimate Warrior Goldust and really a good chunk of the rest of the matches. But ultimately, this last match was only 20 minutes of this entire pay-per-view. So sadly, I'm going to have to say it was not worth it. If we could have changed to some of these dark matches that we missed, like Undertaker and Mankind and Savio Vega and Stone Cold, and replace some of these shitty ones, it could have been a winner. But with the card we were given, I say it was not.
I'm going to go the other way, and the reason for that is because, and we just talked about how Meltzer can't get over the Warrior and Goldust thing, but For me, like after I enjoyed this main event so much that I seriously just forgot about the rest of the show. Like I totally just, the rest of the show just didn't exist when I was watching this. So I say yes, I did get my money's worth for that reason.
Yeah, see, I was really tied up on this one because, like we've kind of pointed out already, the rest of this pay-per-view was subpar, to say the least. So, to me, the real question that I'm asking myself is, was the no-holds-barred match worth $14.95? And I honestly I can't say that it was for me. I loved the match. I agree it's a match of the year candidate. I gave it 4 stars instead of the 5 that you guys did, but that's because I prefer a little bit more of a technical match than what we had here. But still, that's not to take away from it at all. The rest of the match card was just so incredibly poor that regardless of how much I loved this final match, if I had paid $14.95 for this, I would have been pissed off. So my answer is no, I did not get my money's worth.
To add a little bit more to that, it's like I could see Joe's point here. This last match was so great that it's possible, if it was back in 96 and I paid for this, that once it ended, maybe I forgot about how bad the rest of it was, because this last match is that good. It is an excellent match. But when I was rolling it around in my head, it was, 20 minutes versus an hour and 25 minutes of some pretty poor pay-per-view, and it was tough to overcome that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joseph, do you have a breakdown of the numbers there for us?
Yeah, the results to me are not all that surprising. There was 61.7% thumbs up for this show from the readers and 23% thumbs down with the rest in the middle. Clearly, the best match was voted as Shawn Michaels versus Diesel, and the worst match was The Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust.
Yeah.
Match in quotes.
Yeah. I mentioned already that Meltzer said it was an otherwise average show that turned into a strong show from the main event. He also mentions that both Razor Ramon and Diesel were given pay-per-view send-offs before they leave that would be classified as far less than burials. So he liked how they were used here. It's funny how they were going to go out with so much respect, and then they totally shit on everybody with that curtain call. Just kind of looking at it. But also something else I wanted to mention was that there were 2 matches that occurred after this event. Hunter Hearst Helmsley pinned Mark Marrow in what was reported as a so-so match. And The Undertaker pinned Mankind with the Tombstone in what was reported as a terrible match.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah. And that is all I have this week.
All right. Well, that is it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on April 29th, 1996, with matches featuring Isaac Yankem, DDS, The New Rockers, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.